Thank you so much. Good morning to the conference room in Montreal, and I'm presenting from China. So good afternoon and good evening to participants based in other parts of the world. Thanks so much for this opportunity to present my draft paper, and many thanks to the organizing team for accommodating my presentation and also allowing me to participate in this conference remotely. It is my great pleasure to present to you my recent work on the governance of labor rights in Chinese outward mining investment and its connection with global mineral supply chains. The draft paper that I'm working on builds on a chapter of my doctoral thesis, which I recently completed at the Faculty of Law of McGill University. In this introductory presentation, I will briefly introduce the background and structure and the findings of the investigation. My draft paper investigates the role of the CCCMC, a Chinese industry association, in the governance of labor rights in Chinese outward mining investments. The paper showcases that the CCCMC has, since 2014, developed a set of comprehensive corporate social responsibility guidelines for Chinese outward mining investments. And these CSR standards have evolved to respond to governance deficits on decent work in transnational mining investments and global mineral supply chains. My research focus on Chinese outward mining investments originates from the increase of Chinese outward direct investment over the past decade. The research gaps on the role of actors from China in transnational labor law and the recent developments of norm setting and diffusion in the context of Chinese outward mining investments. The investigation was also contextualized in the controversies concerning the social impacts of Chinese outward mining investments, the persistent governance deficits in global mineral supply chains, and the uncertain impacts and the implications of industry-specific CSR standards on labor standards and practices in global mineral supply chains. As you see on the slide, the association has a long name, China Chamber of Commerce of Metals, Minerals, and Chemical Importers and Exporters. But normally it is known as its shortened version. So I'll refer to it by the shortened version and also the word association. The association has more than 6,000 members, and its members are not only Chinese companies, but also different kinds of institutions, units that are working around, for example, the mining and chemical industries. The association was founded in the 1990s, so it has a long, actually a long history. Sorry, but for the CSR standards development, it has a shorter history, and also between 2014 and 2022, there was a very rapid development of these CSR guidelines. My paper traces the processes, actors, and norms surrounding the development of CCCMC guidelines and investigates how CSR is conceptualized, what kind of labor standards are incorporated and diffused by the CCCMC, and how these norm setting and diffusion will influence the future of work in global mineral supply chains. I will briefly introduce the first two sections and will focus on the third section. The investigation builds on a multi-level and actor-centered approach adopted from transnational labor law scholarship and scholarship on social regionalism. While my paper focuses on the CCCMC, it highlights that labor rights in global mineral supply chains are shaped through the dynamics of multi-level governance involving a wide range of state and non-state actors and public and private norms. And also, as you can see from the slide, applying the approach to the context of the development of CCCMC guidelines, I identified a wide group of state and non-state actors that are involved in the development process of the CCCMC guidelines. The processes, the actors, and norms involved are interactive, dynamic, and diverse. And also, this slide also shows that the CCCMC is one of the actors that can be influential in the global mineral supply chains. And also, there are a wide range of various public and private norms, not only in the CCCMC guidelines. And speaking about the guidelines, the essential document is shortened as GSRM, and it was launched in October 2014 by the CCCMC. While the CCCMC is playing a leading role in developing these guidelines and initiatives were these guidelines have drawn insights from different kinds of pre-existing standards in global mineral supply chains. The GSRM identifies 8 thematic issues as key to CSR in Chinese outward mining investments. Organizational governance, fair operating practices, value chain management, human rights, labor issues, occupational health and safety, environment, community involvement and engagement. So while these 8 thematic issues try to distinct labor issues from the other 7 elements, actually these are interconnected, and also as we hear the different thematic topics, they are quite related to labor rights. So basically, not only the topic about labor issues are addressed in these CCCMC guidelines. But labor and human rights are absolutely the key in this document, and also the subsequent documents and initiatives. This GSRM then was followed by several guidelines and operational measures, and also the guidelines were regularly revised. And also, when I was looking into these different guidelines, I looked how they interact with pre-existing CSR standards in global mineral supply chains, and I developed 3 points about its interrelationship with the pre-existing standards. And I found that these guidelines are aligning with the following 3 sets of standards. The first is Chinese state regulatory measures. The second set was international instruments, both hard and soft instruments, including the ILO fundamental conventions, also soft ones such as OECD guidelines on that are relevant to CSR. And the third set is existing voluntary CSR standards, such as, for example, those developed by responsible mineral initiatives in global mineral supply chain. So basically, the development of the CCCMC guidelines and initiatives are not an invention by the CCCMC, but it's the CCCMC's conceptualization of CSR based on pre-existing CSR standards in global mineral supply chains. As also we can see from the slide, the CCCMC has tried to seek recognition by other actors in the global mineral supply chains. Recently, in 2022, the CCCMC has received recognition by London Metal Exchange of its 2022 revision of Chinese due diligence guidelines. Also, when the CCCMC is developing the cobalt refinery due diligence standard, it collaborated with the Responsible Mineral Initiative, which is a very famous and large responsible mineral association that are formed in more than a decade ago. So basically, the CCMC is trying to align with the collaborate with existing key actors and also existing CSR standards. But CCMC as itself is a new and rising actor in developing these CSR standards. And in the last few minutes, I will introduce a bit more detail about how this document has conceptualized CSR in Chinese outward mining investment and how it relates and matters for labor standards and labor practices in global mineral supply chains. And I will give one example from GSRM, which was revised in 2017. As I mentioned before, there are 8 thematic topics in this document, and there are labor issues and also occupational health and safety, which are closely related to labor rights and labor governance in this context. But the other ones, such as community involvement and engagement and fair operating practices, they are also quite related, but I didn't display in this slide. And just to give the 3.5 labor issues as an example, there are a wide range of labor rights highlighted in this clause. And also, as we can see, there are 2 notable points. The first, the guidelines referenced the ILO Fundamental Conventions on number 138 and number 182 on eliminating child labor. And also the second point is that the guidelines establish a collective bargaining mechanism, and it refers to local laws and customs in investment destination countries for Chinese enterprises to follow in their overseas operations. Just to summarize my findings, the CCMC is playing a rising role in developing and shaping CSR standards, especially in clarifying specific labor standards for socially responsible business conduct in response to decent work deficits in global mineral supply chains. And also, I found that CCMC's conceptualization of CSR builds on the general CSR guidance set through state regulatory measures in promoting, facilitating, and regulating Chinese OFDI, Chinese outward foreign direct investments. Also, the development of CCMC guidelines has sought to align with international instruments on CSR and also has evolved to respond to decent work deficits in the transnational context. However, the potential of CCMC guidelines to become mainstream standards in global mineral supply chains remain unclear because, as I mentioned before, there are a wide range of public and private labor norms in global mineral supply chains. The rise of the CSR standards developed by CCMC will surely take part in one of the in constructing the multi-level governance framework in global mineral supply chains. However, it depends how much Chinese enterprises will take these guidelines into consideration. Even if I've identified a few emerging examples about, for example, in the cobalt industry, Chinese cobalt refiners have started to apply these CSR guidelines and also the operational measures into their practices. But how much it will take effect in the whole Chinese enterprise community it will depend. And also when speaking to the whole global mineral supply chains, when we have different kinds of standards, they will probably compete or collaborate with each other. So basically, how far these guidelines can go will also depend on how other actors view these new CSR standards. And I will conclude with two limitations of my draft paper, and also the two future directions for research. First, due to its focus on the role of CCMC and the development of the CCMC guidelines, my paper has made limited efforts to assess the effectiveness and impacts of the guidelines. It will worth continue investigating these guidelines and their impacts on Chinese enterprises. And secondly, it will be interesting to have a comparative study about how the industry associations from other countries such as Canada will take care of these kind of CSR issues in their overseas investment. Thank you.